So my name's Kevin Korn. I farm in Ontario and Nissa, Oregon. We ended up putting 2 units on a system that treats about 4,000 gallons a minute, and they work in tandem with each other, and it's been a game changer. At the bottom of each of our pivot points at this farm, we have a screen that keeps moss out of our system, right? Before we put the Flow-Tech on, every 3 to 4 weeks throughout the summer, even with water running through it, we had to stop the water, pull the screen out, and manually clean the moss off the screen. Now it's once a year. We clean it at the beginning, and we don't touch it again the rest of the year. Probably the biggest unseen advantage we had is less runoff in the fields. You know, we're not historically a huge overhead irrigation area, but the runoff reduction was noticeable within the first 2 weeks. We had less water running off the fields, period. What we did is we just turn those pivots on and we just run them. And our theory is we'll take a day off when the pivot gets stuck, when something breaks down, when there's some sort of mechanical failure. Those pivots ran for 8 weeks before we had our first problem. And our first problem was a flat tire. So we go out there to change this tire, and normally by the end of July, when we start to have problems with deep pivot tracks and things like that, the tracks will be hip deep, at least knee deep, and hip deep, and I'm about 6 feet tall. So they are deep. And we go out there and the pivot tracks are ankle deep. I mean, I wear short boots and that's how deep they were. You know, a lot of people plant in a circle, they do other things, don't subsoil rip through those, they don't put, they try not to disturb that. Not us, we're ripping straight through them. We're putting our pits where we rip the ground through it. We do everything we can that is like a pivot no-no, and it's fine. Corn likes humidity, it likes 2 to 3/10 of an inch of rain every night. Basically, corn likes to grow in Iowa, and we force it to grow somewhere else.
Right.
And the yield, just where we were able to keep the moisture where we wanted it, from running off the field, number one. We were able to keep it from driving our nutrients down away from the roots. I mean, we had those moisture probes out there. We were never driving it more than 16 inches. Being able to shut it off, for disease pressure, energy savings, those are huge for us in this part of the world. Because we're traditionally a dry climate, we start to get humidity-based funguses and bacteria in our crops because we're running these pivots so fast, so short rainstorms every day versus maybe 2 or 3 days, because you can run the pivot slower, put more water on, and then turn it off and leave it off. So the yield on that field, I've had corn in that field 3 times in 6 years, so across different growing seasons, and we had probably, I would say, a 25% yield increase on that field because we were able to keep it wet. And it's a fairly large field for this area. It's 200 acres, and you can get above it there. There's a location on the hill. You can actually see it visually. Normally in cornfields that big in this part of the world, you'll see waves. You'll see whether it's soil types or uneven watering, and you'll see just looks like waves up and down, and there's problems. This field was just level from end to end. It's 4,000 feet across and a quarter mile wide. It's working. I mean, that's the long and the short of it.